Hello there. To everyone who is tuning in, welcome to Basic Binges. For today's episode, I am your host, Mike Manalo. I'm here with a lot of other really fantastic folks. I'll start with some introductions. Mabs, would you like to give a quite quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Marianne Butler, also known as Mab. I am editor-in-chief for Nerdbot.com. I'm very excited to be here. I am a huge Star Wars fan, obviously.
Lovely. Welcome, Marianne and Mab. So appreciate you being here. Next, we'll go with Jeromy. Would you like to go?
Sure. So I'm Jeromy TV on the internet. I do voice internet stuff, and I also stream here on Twitch on my own channel, and I am the marketing and sales director for Heavy Metal, which is a 45-year-old science fiction and fantasy and horror publication.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jeromy, for being here. And last but certainly not least, my good buddy and fellow Moon Knight fan, Mike Lee, also on the Nerds of Color with me. Mike, I love your Tsum Tsums. You've turned into a Tsum Tsum.
Hello, yes, these are my Tsum Tsums. So my precious Obi-Wan Tsum Tsums. As Mike said, I'm Mike Lee, and I write for the Nerds of Color. That's in LA. We Live Entertainment and the Geeks of Doom. So yeah, I'm excited to be here to join this new panel of people that I've just now met today. So
we're excited to be here with you too, Mike. So before we get started, and we're going to dive into every nook and cranny about this episode, folks. I'm really excited for it too. But before we get started with that, not to bring down the mood a little bit, but I think that there is something very important that we have to address, which is the idea of fan toxicity. I'm not sure if many of you have heard, but as soon as the first two episodes of Obi-Wan premiered, Moses Ingram, the wonderful actress that plays Reva, aka Third Sister, was, subject to a lot of harassment the past couple of days. A lot of it being very racist, to the point where Lucasfilm and the wonderful Ewan McGregor kind of went out and spoke against it. We'd be doing disservice to the idea of Star Wars if we didn't address it ourselves, and also openly condemn the idea of fan toxicity and definitely the idea of racism with, a wonderful, brilliant Emmy-nominated actress like Moses Ingram. It's important to remember to everyone that there is an absolute difference between the actress and the character. And if you don't like the character and you don't like the narrative and you don't like the writing or direction, you're absolutely 110% entitled to your opinion. But nothing, and I repeat, nothing gives anyone the right, particularly not an electronic box that people cower behind, anonymously. Nothing gives people the right to harass people or spread the idea of hate and racism out there. That is the antithesis of what a Star Wars fan is. And we don't consider you one if that's what you're into. So that's my soapbox. I'm going to step down from it and allow my cohorts to speak. Does anyone have anything else that they want to
add? Sure. I got into this a little bit before we started, but Star Wars is so important to me, and I'm such a big Star Wars fan. But we as Star Wars fans have to go, we are the best and worst fans in the universe. 100%. We are. There have been, like, with the prequels, this bullying thing has started and has not stopped. Like, they bullied the young man who played Anakin Skywalker. They bullied the guy who played Jar Jar Binks. They bullied Rose, and they bullied my good friend Christina, and I will fucking fight you. They bullied so many people, and it needs to stop. Star Wars is about standing up to bullies. Star Wars is about fighting against people who oppress people for being different. And I think the Star Wars official post about it was like, there are over 2,000 known species in the Star Wars galaxy. Don't be racist. Don't be racist. Don't don't bully actors, don't bully children actors, especially. And like it's not just Star Wars. It happened with Game of Thrones. The kid who played the prince, he was bullied to the point where he was afraid to go out in public. He was afraid to eat at a restaurant because where people would spit in his food because he played a good villain. And I think in this situation, we have somebody playing someone you don't like, and you're not supposed to like her because she's a bad guy. But not liking her for the color of her skin is the wrong reason, and treating the actor any different because of the character or the show is appalling and very immature and just gross. So that's my thought.
Anyone else?
I mean,
But go ahead.
Yeah, there's no other way to put it as eloquently as you guys have said. It's just so sad to see where Star Wars started. There wasn't that much representation, as so to speak, in the 1970s in the original trilogy, and the only person we got that I noticed was Lando and that one Asian pilot in Return of the Jedi. So that was about it. And to see it progress to where it is now, I'm really excited to see, more of a reflection of the diversity within this galaxy, which is, and also on Earth, because it's a reflection of where we are right now. But it's just so sad to see how some people use their social media platforms, or as Mike said, hide behind bots to just attack them needlessly for just being who they are. And I'm just going to go a little bit about representation, because one of the social media posts I saw on Star Wars was Moses Ingram talking about the toy, and to hear her talk about, oh, it's got the braids, I can see myself in these characters. It means a lot to everybody, especially within that community, to say something like that, to see themselves in these characters, whether it's on the Sith or on the Jedi side. So it carries a lot of weight, and for people to try to take that away and claim it as their own sort of thing, it's just sad to see.
All I was going to say about it is I was hoping we had gotten past this part. And I know that's kind of giving the internet at large too much credit, but Celebration Chicago a couple of years ago, they brought out Ahmed Best, the actor who played Jar Jar. And everyone was kind of like, oh no, how is this going to go? He's coming out on stage in the main hall. And everyone stood up and gave him a standing ovation. Like, it was the least they could do as the fandom community to try to make up for the harassment he went through. But it was wonderful to see, and I keep hoping that that's where we're going, to that point. Like the fact that Kelly Marie Tran came back to Celebration after everything she experienced before. She was there this year, and it gave me hope a little bit that maybe we can get past that. And the fact that Star Wars is now taking a stance and issuing a statement like what they said, which they didn't do before, when it was, I would say, worse, but that's not fair to Moses at all, because whatever she's going through is what she's going through. And so I'm just hopeful. I'm hopeful that it can get better, and that we can all encourage those who are the vocal insulters and bullies to do something else with their time.
Thank you guys for your words, honestly, and thank you guys for listening as well. This is an important subject, and we definitely want to all get along together, because if there's one thing that unites us all, it's our love for Star Wars. And it doesn't matter what race you are, what gender you are, what sexual orientation you are, and what you identify or don't identify with. We're all Star Wars fans. That's what we're supposed to identify with, and that's what we're supposed to love. So, just be respectful to each other. Harassment is not okay. Racism is not okay. And just be better. That's what we'll leave everything at. So thank you guys so much for listening. And with that, we'll continue with our show. So first off, with this episode, holy crap, right? Everyone, I mean, holy crap.
Yeah.
Right?
Picked a good episode to join you guys.
I'm so excited to talk about this one because we are going to get there, but that last half of the episode, like, mind blown for everyone, I think. Let's just go around really quickly and get overall thoughts before we kind of dive into the specific story points. Mab, I'd love for you to go first. What are your thoughts on the overall episode?
I love Deborah Chow a lot, and I'm delighted that she's doing I know that t-shirt. Oh yeah.
This is too small for me, actually.
So far,
I can't breathe.
Not letting me down. I'm very happy because I didn't want it to be like action the entire way through. It's got to have some peaks and valleys. It's got to bring you there. It's a journey. It's not a sprint, right? And so I very much enjoyed how this episode did have a couple of more quiet moments, but some definite tension and some definite like, oh my God, they're doing the thing.
I love that. Mike, what about you?
Yeah, to Mabs's point, I love the pacing of this entire series so far. It just takes you there, and in between those moments, you get to see more of this jaded Jedi, Obi-Wan, become more find his faith, basically, because he's lost it. He's just become so jaded after what he's experienced, losing his friends, his mentor, everybody, basically, after what's happened, and to see it come alive again, so to speak, through his protection of Leia is pretty incredible, and I just can't wait to see his trajectory in later episodes. So yeah.
And Jeromy.
Yeah, I think I agree. This episode had a little bit of everything, and that's this was like a pinnacle episode for me. It had a little bit of everything. It had those good moments. It had good character moments where you're just like, oh my God, like, he's dealing with some stuff and he's got trust issues. And there's like, you're seeing parts of Leia that, I'll go into a little bit later, but I think it's really clever how they're doing it. And there's so much. And then obviously there are the big moments where you're just like, oh my God, is that who I think it is? And like, it had everything in this episode, and a little bit more, and there were fun little side things that I think I enjoyed that I didn't expect from the episode. So, but there were some issues. I'm going to be that guy. There were a few issues I had, and I'll get into those a little bit as we go.
Jeromy, you're not the only. You're not that guy. Trust me, we're going to be the guys, because I also, as a whole, as a series, I do have a couple of issues with Obi-Wan itself. Now, I'm enjoying the ride, don't get me wrong, and I do think that this was by far the most fun I've had so far in only 3 episodes. We only have had 3 episodes so far. I do have issues with this episode as I have with the series overall. We'll get into that for sure. So you're not the only that guy, I promise you. I think there are issues. Overall, I think this has been my favorite of the 3 so far. I mean, for obvious reasons, but more so, one of the reasons why I was a little worried about this series after the first 2 episodes was because there's a lot of retreading very similar storylines that we've had in Star Wars before. Particularly jaded guy having to watch over kid and escort them throughout the galaxy. We've seen that. We've also seen petty in-squabbling and politics within corporate structures in Rogue One kind of coming to light as well here amongst the Inquisitors. So I was worried a little bit about some of the repeated story beats that we've seen before. However, I think actually that this episode, particularly in addressing the Mandalorian story beat with, jaded guy escorting kid across the galaxy, there's something a little bit more unique about how Obi-Wan approaches it versus how Mandalorian approaches it that I really, really dug from this episode. And we can get into that momentarily. So we start out, of course, with a particularly badass scene, if I might. Of course, Obi-Wan is troubled because he just found out Anakin's alive. He hasn't, of course, seen Anakin since Mustafar in Revenge of the Sith, and he's reaching out as much as he can to Qui-Gon for guidance, and what to do, because this is like PTSD fears coming to life completely. But it's beautifully intercut with something that we've never really seen in Star Wars, which is the daily routine of Darth Vader. He wakes up in the morning, gets the tubes out, he gets his arm attached and his legs attached and everything like that. And it's pretty intense and pretty insane to see all this. I know that they were teasing it at the end of the last episode, but actually getting to see this, how did everyone feel about that? I mean, was that pretty shocking to folks? Whoever wants to start.
Go ahead.
I just want to know what song he wakes up to in the morning. Like, is he a Wham guy? Does he wake up to George Michael? Or like, that's my question. Because, you get out of a back to tank like that with all the tubes, you got to have something to just get yourself going in the morning. That's all I can think of.
What's his day starter song?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I hope they clean that tank out, because, yeah. You're just stewing in that thing for hopefully an average of 8 hours sleep, because that's what
doesn't it clean itself? Isn't that how the Bacta works? I don't know. Alika's in the comments. He can tell us exactly how Bacta works. He's the biggest Star Wars fan I know. I thought it was insane, and I was just hyped. I was like grabbing my chair. I was like, Darth Vader, Darth Vader, Darth Vader. And then when you hear the voice and it's James Earl Jones,
that was the best surprise.
I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. And I was like, just chills. I was like, Daddy, what? No, Daddy, what? No, Daddy. I think Hayden Christensen is great. I'm glad that they have him back to play like the physical, Darth Vader. But and he will always be Anakin Skywalker to me. He's Anakin Skywalker. But to me, Darth Vader is always James Earl Jones. So when I heard that voice, I was like, let's go.
Chills. Ooh.
Yeah. But I have to say, the way, he's all put together, set against Natalie Holt's like composition music, that was just so, I was just like, oh my gosh, I want more of this. And it was just incredible to see how, like you said, it was interplaying together like that. But yeah, everyone said everything else what I wanted to say, but yeah.
In some regions it was Natalie Holt's score, in other regions it was Wham. So yeah, that was the region.
I like that. Yeah,
I love that. No, but Natalie's score.
One of my favorite things I saw today in response to the whole racism thing is that, do these guys know that Darth Vader's voice is a black man, or are they unaware of that fact? Because that could very well be that these guys just have no idea. Do they think it's actually David Prowse? Have they heard his voice?
Did they know all the stormtroopers were played by black or people of color?
I know.
And James Earl Jones is such a good actor, such a good performer. Sorry.
Yeah,
I have to say, I like this episode's his vocal performance than Rogue One. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
It's intimidating in this, honestly. Yeah. It really chills. Moving on just a little bit, not too far out. We do get Leia, of course, coming up to Obi-Wan, and in one of my favorite lines, in how they sort of describe the Force. She's like, are we there yet? Why can't you use the Force to get us there faster? He's like, what? That's not how it works.
The Force works.
How the Force works. No one gets how the Force works except Obi-Wan. And I love the scene where basically she goes, well, how does it work? What does it feel like? Which is such, we never really, we've heard people talk about the Force, but to talk about what it feels like is kind of something new for us. And he describes it in such a beautiful way. Have you ever been afraid of the dark? When you turn on the light, what does that feel like? And I'm just like, oh my God, there's something religious in all of that and beautiful in all of that. And that experience and that comfort where she goes, it feels safe. That's really everything that I think Lucas envisioned when he came up with the concept of the Force. So did you guys have any thoughts on that?
I think that was I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but one of my favorite things that they're doing is they're kind of showing that Leia is Force sensitive. Like they show her reading her cousin and basically telling him everything about himself. And then she does it to Obi-Wan and she knows that he's hiding something. So you could tell that she's Force sensitive and she's a smart kid. So she wants to ask him if like, hey, maybe this thing that's been going on with me, maybe you know something about it and I could get some information. I think that question was her wanting to know if what she's been feeling is the Force. And I think they're doing it in a really clever way that doesn't just give it away. Because obviously if Obi-Wan realized she had the Force, he would take her for training because that's what he's supposed to do.
Would he though? Because I don't think that this Obi-Wan would. I think maybe we see him have that conflict later on in the series, but Obi-Wan as we see him right now, he absolutely would not.
Well, he tried to take Luke for training.
But he didn't really try to take Luke because if Obi-Wan wanted to, he absolutely could have.
That's true.
It feels like he's putting more of his faith into Luke than Leia, just by observation. So yeah.
Go ahead.
I just think it's clever how they're kind of doing that with her, and I think how she's like the way she's asking, the way she's telling him things, but not telling him directly that she knows these things because she feels weird about it. I think that is one of the things that they're doing really well with her character.
And I think in some ways as well, all of you guys are hitting the nail on the head. Mike, I want to go back to something that you said. He's putting his emphasis on Luke rather than Leia. Is that not the underlying point of this series thus far? There's parallels between, how much people underestimate Leia because she's a woman, because she's female, as well as Reva as well. So it's very much parallel journeys for both of them, with the exception of... Yeah, there's definitely a theme going. There's something that they're formulating here, which I actually think is quite brilliant, because when you think about A New Hope, and before everyone goes out there and accuses Star Wars of going woke or whatever, first off, nuts to that. Those are crazy people. And second of all, I think when we think about New Hope, there's already something of an established familiarity between Leia and Obi-Wan that there isn't with Luke at all. So having him and develop this relationship with Leia during these times, for as much as people say that it breaks canon, I don't think it actually does. I think it kind of enhances or pads the canon a little bit more. And I actually think that's kind of nice, whether or not Obi-Wan literally finds out that she's as Force sensitive and as powerful as Luke or not in this series. It is very important that he kind of picks up on that at least a little early on, there's a reason Yoda says there is another, right? So, okay. So I'm going to jump a little bit ahead for the sake of brevity and time. Leia and Obi-Wan arrive at the mining planet. It's captured by imps. It's basically taken over by imps everywhere, Imperial guards and stormtroopers everywhere. They have to be very, very careful. They go to the rendezvous point where, I'm so sorry, I'm going to call him Kingo, Kumail Nanjiani, but I forgot his character's name. Somebody help me out. Sorry. But anyways, where Kumail Nanjiani tells him to go. And
Obi-Wan Jedi.
Yeah.
The not Jedi.
Not the non-Jedi. I'm going to call him Kumail. Where Kumail tells him to go. And, Obi-Wan, which is very rare for a character like him, exhibits something that we haven't seen before, which particularly speaks to his mental state: impatience. He's there for like 5 seconds and he's like, this guy screwed us. It's cynicism, it's impatience. We know where he's at because of these qualities, because of these traits. He's not willing to wait very long. He's already dismissing the fact that somebody screwed them over, that Kumail Nanjiani screwed them over. Leia's the one that's sort of like, what's that? Haja. I'm so sorry. Yes, that's right.
Thank you, Fulcrum. Fulcrum in the chat. Gotcha.
Thank you, Fulcrum. Sorry about that.
Yeah,
Haja,
that's nice.
Yes. Yeah, I should know this as the host. So, take that take me with a grain of salt. Sorry about that. But anyways, Hadja tells him to go to this place. Obi-Wan doesn't want to wait. He's already dismissive of Leia. Leia goes, what if they're late? He's like, not all people are good, and he's jaded as hell. He's not in a good place. And all of that is kind of revealed here. Whereas Leia is this bright sprinkle of optimism. And let's be honest, what Leia always is, hope as well. What she always embodies is a slight sprinkle of optimism and hope to Obi-Wan, even though he's kind of dismissive about it. So, what do you guys think of this idea that Leia really is going to be his way back into a more positive mindset and more positive way of thinking?
I didn't take it as optimism. I took it as practicality. It's like, we're here. There's literally nothing else around. Let's solve a problem. Because that's more what she is. Let's think about the hallway scene in A New Hope where the dudes are just trying to pick their nose, trying to figure out what to do next. And she blows a hole in the wall and says, all right, here, I solved a problem. That to me is her in a nutshell. And so I love little moments like that, because you can absolutely see how this little girl is going to grow up to be that woman. And I love that so much. So I guess I could see it as optimism, but I definitely see it more as practicality. Just like there is a decision that needs to be made. There is a choice, and I'm going to make it for you because you are incapable of making the choice right now.
Well said.
She definitely got that from her dad. Because she's so observant of everything. And then everyone knows that, at least everyone says, you make a great senator, you make a great politician. So I guess to Matt's point, it's just, she sees the world as it is, like, there's full of opportunities sort of thing. And, not all people are bad, and she, based on her experience, you just got to take it as it is and figure it out and go from there sort of thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. Like, we've seen her so far. She's not the wait around to be saved type. The first thing she did when they left her alone is she got her robot out and tried to break free. And then the first moment she didn't trust Obi-Wan, she was gone. So she's not the sit around and wait for things to get fixed kind of person. I do think that, and you may bring this up in the later scenes, but the way that he treats her and looks at her and how it reminds him of Padme and Anakin, I think his love for them is going to start to bring him more towards the path that he's lost. But I don't know if it's necessarily like a hope thing. I think he looks at her and is like, you are part of my family because they were my family. And that's starting to click in with him. And I think that'll be like what pushes him to redeem his love for his family being Anakin, Padme, and the kids, versus his fear of Anakin and his fear of what he did and how he failed.
Mm-hmm. Well said, everyone. So yes, agreed on all accounts, for sure. And, Mab, we see that pragmatism, in her, really on display, full display when Freck, the mole-faced miner, who is an imperialist, let's be honest, he has love for the Empire, and voiced by Zach Braff, no less.
Yeah.
Pulls up, and on the fly, she makes up a story, makes up names, makes up a planet, all of that stuff, because she's already got this strategized and planned out in her head. And they hitch a ride with him, and they unfortunately are in the hands of somebody who sympathizes with the Empire. So he stops to pick up a couple of stormtroopers, and naturally things get a little tense, We're kind of waiting to see if what's going to happen, if these people are going to discover who Obi-Wan is, all of that. And he ends up slipping a little bit because he calls her Leia, which is it's a little, in the heat of the moment, he is getting a little bit messy. She's the one that's kind of keeping cover, and she's like, dude, cool it, but in that moment, you also get a very touching sequence, where he does, heartfelt, in a heartfelt way, tell her how much she reminds him of her mother, of Padme, and how much that, I obviously the stormtroopers have to buy that because the emotion is so real. What did you guys think of that moment? Obi-Wan almost blowing it, and then the Padme reference, which we've seen again, last episode, but also here.
Oh God, it was so well done, just well written, well acted, well directed. The question she asks him after that scene happens, I think, is the more emotional bomb, where she asks if he is her real father.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
there's like, oh God, because there's always that group of the fandom that thinks that it should have been Obi-Wan and Padme because they are two very similar people and have the same interests and all of that stuff. So that moment was more emotionally impactful for me personally, but I love that scene so much because that is what makes Obi-Wan who he is that, yeah, he's a Jedi. You're not supposed to be controlled by your emotions, but he always has been. That's what sets him apart from Qui-Gon, from Mace Windu, from everybody else. That's what it is for him. And that's why maybe Yoda gave him Anakin to begin with, is because he knew that that emotion was what was going to connect them the most. And so I loved that moment.
Yeah, I want to echo kind of what Mab said there is like that was the beginning of a beautiful scene and it just got better and better. Like it when she's like, "Are you my dad?" and he's like, "No, I'm not." And
But I
she's
wish
like,
I was.
"Yeah, I wish that I was." And
There's kind of that
she's like,
subtext.
"I've tried to imagine him so many times." And he says, "I know what that feels like. As a Jedi, we're taken away when we're very young." And he talks about how he remembers his mom's hand, he remembers his dad's coat or shawl, and then he remembers his little brother. And that part stood out to me because that means that's a memory he's held on for his whole life. And when he took on Anakin, and he says, "You were like a brother to me, Anakin," that was his replacement for the brother that he lost. And so it's like he lost his brother all over again. He lost his family all over again. And I thought that was my favorite scene actually in the whole episode, was just that beautiful sequence. And then you get that moment where it's like, yeah, Obi-Wan was taken away from his family. It's not perfect being a Jedi, and he had a little brother that we know nothing about until this moment, but it makes so much sense for the way that he treated Anakin.
I can't say anymore because you guys said it so well, but I'll just say that if I was ever in trouble, I want Leia to help with my story, like because she can add to the story and make it, convincing.
Absolutely. Jeromy, I mean, to your point as well, that is a huge whopper that we didn't expect to get in this series, at all, which is a little bit of backstory about Obi-Wan before his trials with Qui-Gon. And I'm sure that there's probably a lot of hardcore fans in the chat and maybe just around that might know if there's any canon books or anything like that kind of dive into this. But to my knowledge, at least from the cartoons, from the movies, this is the first I've ever heard of Obi-Wan's family life prior to him joining the Jedi. And it is such a huge and shocking revelation to us. And one of the reasons why I absolutely love this scene, there's not a lot of breathing room in this episode, because after this, everyone hits the ground running. Everyone's on high alert. Tensions are crazy. And it's pretty much just trying to escape the mining planet with one major obstacle coming. So to kind of, pause, take a breath, and get these characters to get to know one another, but also for the audience to discover and get to know Obi-Wan way more than they assumed that they knew him. What a beautiful moment in Star Wars history. I'm going to be honest. I'm going to say Star Wars history.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So Freck, drops off the stormtroopers, pulls up to the gate, and of course there's more imps there, just kind of scouting the area. And we find out that he's basically about to turn them in. He's basically like, I suspect these guys. You better check them out, because he's a little, mole-nosed traitor. I think, they execute a procedure where a probe droid comes, and here's where Deborah Chow's full-on badassery comes into play. We saw glimpses of this in The Mandalorian. We obviously saw it in the first 2 episodes of Obi-Wan, but Obi-Wan goes full John Wick. He takes his pistol out and he's just shooting people up left and right. Target, bam, 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 bam. And he's just an expert with that thing, to the point where he shoots one guy. Dude falls through a gate, sliced in half. And it's just the most badass thing ever in Star Wars. I just had to call all this out because I've never seen anyone sliced in half by a laser gate before. Any thoughts before we move on from that moment?
I just loved how Obi-Wan used Fleck as a human shield, or a mole phase shield. That was
and then didn't kill him.
I never thought he would do that.
Kill him.
He didn't. He didn't kill him. So
he specifically spared him, and I was like, oh, he did that because he didn't want Leia to see him kill that guy. All the other people, it was okay, but the one guy Leia trusted, he didn't want to be oh.
Shooting stormtroopers is okay.
Yeah, they're fine. They have armor. That's what it's there for.
And they are trying to.
That guy who fell through the gate, he's fine. He's sleeping.
He's fine.
He's sleeping.
If
they're back together. It's like a Lego. Just put the legs and the thing together.
Did that whole fence paddock thing not look like the Jurassic Park T-Rex paddock though?
Yes.
That was my son and I were watching it. We're both are they at Jurassic Park? What is happening?
Rancor's behind the gate, basically.
So that scene was one of the ones where I had a love-hate relationship with. Loved the action, loved the moments, loved the guy getting cut in half. I was like, same thing happened to Darth Maul. You'll be fine. And then it was ruined for me because they kind of pan out and you see the gate, and then Obi-Wan tries to open the gate and it doesn't open, so then he has to break it. But they could have easily just walked around.
Yeah.
If they weren't going to take the truck, there was 2 paths on the side that had enough room for anybody to walk around this laser defense.
Or they could have climbed up the little stanchion that had the handle on it, or he could have force jumped over it and he could have yeeted Leia across it. I don't. There's any number of
make her float, basically.
But there was literally after they show them opening the gate, then there was they pan out and they could have easily walked around it.
They could have walked up that hill.
And I was just this is.
Which, Jeromy, you bring up a good point. That happens a lot in this episode, where different solutions, other simpler solutions, could be employed, but nobody does anything to employ those solutions. We'll get to some of those moments later on.
I kind of wish Leia would say, we could have just walked around it.
Yeah. I was like, this is the silliest thing, because I was like, oh, maybe they're going to get back in the car and he's going to drive it. And no, they're just going to keep walking. And I was like... you clearly see next to the guard post and next to where the gate ends, there's 4 foot of room between it and the hill. If somebody you could have drove a motorcycle through it.
Well, I suppose they wanted to just look cool blasting the gate. It's just there's no one left to shoot, so let's shoot the gate. For the sake of it. But they get through the gate when they could have gone around it. And more Imperial troopers come, stormtroopers come. And we get also our first glimpse of a character that we're going to come to know as Tala. And she's dressed up as an Imperial officer. She's leading the stormtroopers there. They're pretty much nicked, they have to get on their knees. Tala brings out her gun and blam, blam, blam. The stormtroopers are gone. And she's leading them there. Doesn't introduce herself or anything like that. It's pretty much just we got to move. We got to get going. Leads them down there. Tries to scope out her little hideout for them. And while they're doing that, again, we have a nice moment with Leia and Obi-Wan, where Leia is kind of this is all my fault. I screwed up. I should never run away. I shouldn't have done this. And Obi-Wan really, goes from that, his shell is his disillusioned shell is kind of breaking, and he's really trying to comfort her. He's like, it wasn't your fault. Don't even think about this. Don't even worry about this. This just happened. We'll get out of it, etc. yeah, before we progress, I mean, any thoughts on that little moment, I guess, from the gate to Tala's reveal to Obi-Wan's comforting of Leia?
I was still mad at the gate, so when he just kind of gave up and got down on his knees, I was like, what? Like, you just
have
took
a
out
lightsaber.
Yeah, you have
What
a
are you
lightsaber.
doing?
You've taken out armies before, and you just took out twice the number of stormtroopers 5 seconds ago. 5 seconds ago, you just did that, and now you're giving up. And I'm like, I thought it was good for them to like be like show her as an Imperial traitor and all of that, but I was still mad at the gate, so I wasn't willing to believe that scene as much. But yeah,
Oh no, I'm right there with you. That was one of the 2 moments in this episode that I'm like, what? Come on. This does not compute with what we just saw. Like, what?
No, I didn't like the execution of it either. It's like, did someone give it a pass in this story? Because it just doesn't work. Yeah.
It's honestly a lot of conveniences taken throughout the past 3 episodes just to get Obi-Wan from point A to point B, which is, it's kind of unfortunate. You know, I know that they're concerned about setting up and telling the story and progressing the story, but yeah, it does take you out of the moment. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
But yeah. But then we go into Tala's hideout, and we discover that there's a secret room, and basically it leads to something called the path, you know, which is, you know, so I don't necessarily want to compare it to something as grave as the Underground Railroad, which was,
you know,
that was
or one of my first thoughts too. But
it's very similar to that in a way, because you're creating an underground network of tunnels so that Jedi can escape. We get a name drop for all of you hardcore Clone Wars fans out there. Quinlan Vos left his mark in that cave. And for those of you who, you know Quinlan from whether it's Phantom Menace or his episodes in Clone Wars, it's a big name drop and a big deal for Obi-Wan to see his markings on there. So that's kind of cool. We also see a Jedi symbol on the wall and everything like that. And we find out that Tala's been doing this for a bit. And really helping a lot of folks, a lot of Jedi that were on the hunt. You know, before things start to sour, and we're gonna get into the big next point to all of this. By the way, I realized I'm focusing exclusively on the mining planet, and I haven't actually gone back to what the Inquisitors are doing. We should probably revisit that, but before we do, any thoughts on, you know, the Quinlan Vos Easter egg and just the path in general?
I'm kind of mad you didn't mention the best boy. Can we talk about Muscle Droid? Whatever his name is.
Why is Ned B? Yeah.
Why is he so buff? Why is he hot? Why is he hot?
He's a loader droid. He's gotta,
he's gotta bulk up.
Gotta have the muscles. Yeah.
The scene with him where he's got the hammer because Leia talked to him and like actually communicated with him and treated him like a person. And he had the hammer and he was all like, "I'm the goodest boy." I was like, "Yes, Muscle Droid, let's go." That was the highlight for me, and I did love the little Easter eggs. I thought like the moments where she's like, "Oh, can you teach me how to shoot?" and she'll be a great fighter someday. And like Obi-Wan kind of admits that he's starting to see that in her. So good. And then the way she puts her gun like is like note to like the way Leia.
Mm-hmm.
It was all good. Ben loader droid greater than Ben Swallow. That's what he said in the comments. I loved him so much, and I was
the thirst is real. Come on,
he's the goodest boy.
I really want to go through and pause each of the graffiti bits that we see on the wall and see what else is there, because there might be more.
Mm-hmm.
Would love that, honestly. Yeah, and honestly, you know, I hope Tala does end up teaching Leia how to shoot eventually, you know, and they form this bond, and she's just like, boom, 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 you know, this is how you do it, Leia. That'd be cool.
I'm a huge Leia fangirl. Like, what? I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Wearing a Leia pin, Leia shirt.
Yeah, you can't see the back of the jacket either, but it's I love Leia. And there's a whole thing for me personally, every time they put one of those little nuggets in there where teach me how to shoot. And then we go back to A New Hope in the hallway scene where we find out that Carrie Fisher had to do actual gun training and none of the dudes did. And that is why she is the only one that is holding the gun properly and the only one that hits the targets. And it makes me happy, like little things like that makes me happy.
Yeah. Mike, do you have anything to add?
No, that was perfect. I mean, what everyone said was, but I would also just pause every frame to see it, because I was like that Leo GIF pointing at, oh, that's Quinlan. Oh, that's the rebels, the Phoenix symbol. So yeah,
Mhm.
I was just like,
My son reads Arabesh, so that's maybe what we're gonna do tonight is just go through and see what all he can pick out of that scene.
Nice.
Your son is awesome. You are
He is
training
pretty
that kid
awesome.
very well.
it's like, hey, when I hear
The force
that,
is
yeah.
strong in my
Force is
family.
strong with him. Yeah.
Well done, young Padawan, if you're watching this or you listen to it later.
So we do have to pause on the mining planet because, as I said, I neglected a huge part of this episode, which is literally what's going on with our inquisitorial staff. As of now, we are under the impression that Grand Inquisitor is dead, which again, I do take a lot of issue with as a Rebels fan because none of that makes sense. But I'm sure they're going to rectify that. You know, let's hope by the end of the season or the series.
Again, Darth Maul chopped in half. He's fine.
I suppose so, but you know, if they don't show it or explain it to me, then that's kind of like, come on, guys.
Yeah, could have stabbed in the liver, so we don't
yeah.
know. You know,
it's
so he's fine.
We're hoping that he comes back, but no sign of him here, and I guess we're left to assume that he is dead, even though he's not. But Reva makes a call to her boss because her boss's boss, because her boss is dead, thanks to her, and she blames it on Kenobi. And she tells Vader the whole situation. Vader defers to her. She goes and she tells Fifth Brother, and I'm not familiar with the other Inquisitor that was with them. I don't think that was Seventh Sister, despite that the skin color might be slightly similar to Seventh Sister. But Fifth Brother's like, I'm the next in line. He's like force smacking her. He's like, I'm the next in line. You shouldn't be doing this. And she's like, well, I just went over your head. I just went to Vader. And if you want to defy his orders, you be my guest, but I'm not going to listen to you. I'm listening to him. And then there becomes a little, competition between them because he's like, well, I'm going to talk to Vader now. And now, he's enthusiastic about the news that I'm giving him. And we're all going to go and, get Kenobi now because of this. What do you guys think of office politics in the inquisitorial staff?
I mean, clearly we know that Reva has some issue with Kenobi. Like there is a reason why she is obsessed with this guy, and it can't just be because she knows that Darth Vader wants him. Like there's something more personal there. And so I feel like in a way it was her stepping in front of her fellow Inquisitors, just saying like, no, this is more important to me than it is to you, and I'm going to prove it. Mm-hmm. So I liked that. And considering the fact that Krennic is one of my favorite Imperials ever, because he is middle management, who is the most capable Imperial person we ever see. He actually does every single thing he sets out to do successfully. I feel like Reva is right at that point too, where she is pretty much doing everything that she's setting out to do. So she has every reason to be like, no, sorry, dude, Vader likes me. He picked me.
Yeah, she even makes a point of saying, if you want to take the credit, go ahead, but I'm going to get the job done, because like, hey, but she's certainly driven and ambitious, and she knows how to climb that corporate ladder. But about the base, going back to there's this checkpoint where Reva crosses. It seems like she could have just gone around the checkpoint or whatever.
Yeah,
so again, with the whole infrastructure of the whole thing, is like, why is this place so oddly in here? So Yeah.
I felt like that one was just her showing she could walk through security checkpoints without them doing anything, because they all stood at attention instead of checking her. And I was like, all right,
Okay.
you're boss. You're boss.
Am
Go ahead.
Am I
I'll take
wrong in
that,
assuming that it looked like a location from Jedi Fallen Order? Because it really looked like a location from
really
Jedi
did.
Fallen
It does
Order.
it does look like it.
And so that's why I think maybe they had her do that and not just go around that whole red thing.
Yeah.
It's like, no, really, guys, this is a location, you're aware of this.
Yeah. So the whole thing with them, two things. One, my favorite thing is like she starts to explain how the Inquisitor died. And Darth Vader's like, I don't give a fuck. He's like,
Yeah,
he's
doesn't
like,
care.
he's like, I don't give a fuck. I've been watching you. I know how he died. But like, don't try lying to me right now. I don't care. I don't care. All I care about is Kenobi. And like, he just straight up like tells her this, and she's like, oh, okay. And she like goes off, and then fifth brother, who is played by Sung Kang, I believe.
Mhm.
Yes.
Is probably one of my favorite characters in the series, because he's so angry and so growly, and he's so Sith. He's so Sith that I love that about his character. At first, I was like, he's got a dumb little hat, but now I'm like, all right, I like his dumb little hat, and I like how angry he is in his dumb little hat. And he's probably one of my favorite standout characters, and I think he's doing an incredible job. As a performance goes.
So 2 questions for you guys. One, how do you feel about his performance, and whether or not it's relatively consistent to the fifth brother that we meet in Rebels? I mean, it seems a little different, right? Like,
Yeah. I think in the Rebels, which sister again? I don't remember the number. But
yeah,
I think there was that dynamic. There's that dynamic missing because that sister's not in. Or at least I don't think it is in Obi-Wan so far.
I don't think so.
There's definitely something missing, but he's doing as much as he can with the material he's been given. So I like it.
This is
I wish he just ate snacks more.
Isn't it? This takes place after Rebels.
Yes.
No, this takes place before Rebels, right?
Oh.
Does it? Because
it takes place before
10
Rebels.
years. So when does Rebels take place?
Rebels, when Leia's introduced in Rebels, she's about, I want to say, 13 or 12. So it's a couple of years after Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Oh, and then they have that scene with Old Man Ben as well. And,
yes, in Rebels where he kills Maul.
Yeah.
Well, so then maybe we see that character get to that point. Like, this is where he started, and maybe we'll see him progress to that point.
Possibly. I mean, he's a lot dumber in Rebels, to be honest.
Oh no, that means
he's
not a good trajectory.
I mean, like, I suppose that's dismissing him a little bit. Seventh Sister was the brains, really, of the operation, with him and fifth brother, with her and fifth brother. But I mean, they both get killed by Maul anyways, eventually. So yeah. Spoiler alert for if you haven't seen Rebels. It's all connected, guys. It's all canon, or at least we think it is. So far, nothing from Kenobi has proven any of that. But anyways, that being said, the other question that I have is: does anyone get the feeling that Vader's playing these guys against each other, like intentionally? I mean, fifth brother, you can have the Grand Inquisitor position. Third sister, you can have the Grand Inquisitor position. Whoever pleases me. And just kind of like let them fight.
I think it's more he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he legitimately he has one goal in mind, and Vader in the comics, Vader throughout like the series is just like, he's about like his passion. He's about his rage. He's about his anger. He's about his vengeance. Like, he doesn't care who becomes Inquisitor. He doesn't care that the Inquisitor died, as long as he gets what he wants. And I think that's more what's happening than him like playing against them, because he doesn't really benefit from playing them against each other. I think they're playing against each other because they're Sith. And there's supposed to be like a rule of 2 to keep them like balanced and not killing each other. And now you're getting a bunch of them in the same room together. And it's like, oh, I'm better than you are. I'm more powerful than you are. I could use more force if I kill you. depending on which Force theory you subscribe to. But like, I think it's more that I think they're just all really ambitious and power driven. And he, at the end of the day, he just cares about his passion and power, and he doesn't care about the Empire. Like, we see that in the movies, like when he chokes that guy out, he's like, I'll like burn this place to the ground to get to my kid. Like, that's all he cares about.
I would like to. Yeah,
totally agree. Nope, I was just gonna agree. That's it. That's exactly it.
Mike, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say maybe he's just, like he said, he doesn't give a fuck about it. So he's probably just positioning themselves to, or playing the mind games to kill them, to kill off each other. So he has less to worry about. Maybe he's just like, you know what? I'm just so tired of hearing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to do this to you guys so you can kill each other off and I won't have anything to worry about anymore.
Fair enough. All right. So, speaking of people being driven, these guys drive all the way to, the mining planet. Not literally, of course, but they arrive at the mining planet. And as Obi-Wan and Leia and Tala are about to make their escape, Obi-Wan feels it. And we know why he pauses. We know why, he's stopping and he's not feeling good. And it's because Vader's there. And he's just like, oh, crap. Vader arrives, and Vader is just ruthlessly killing people left and right. That's just, like a force of nature, like we saw in Rogue One. He's just going around snapping people's necks. There's that poor family where he shoves a guy out the window. The sun comes out and he just kills the son right then and there. Doesn't care, doesn't, give a crap. And Obi-Wan is just like freaking out in his head because his PTSD-induced nightmares are now a reality. And he tells Tala, get her to Alderaan, get Leia to Alderaan. Please promise me, by any means necessary, I'm going to buy you guys some time. I'm going to get them away from you guys. Just do this. And Tala's like, all right, I'm going to do it for you. So Tala and Leia head underground. Kenobi comes out, and he's, in the quarry. And then all of a sudden we see a beautiful shot, just the silhouette of Vader, and then a lightsaber ignite. And Obi-Wan takes out his lightsaber, but he doesn't light it. And instead he just bolts, because he's leading him away, right? So he's running through the quarry, and we hear James Earl Jones in a very one-sided conversation. Let's be honest, a very one-sided conversation, just going like, you can't run, Obi-Wan, and chasing after him and everything like that. Before we get to the actual fights and everything like that, I know that that's a lot of ground that I covered. Any thoughts, on that, on all of those events, him feeling it, Vader's murder spree, anything like that?
I mean, in a way, it was kind of weird to see Vader just murdering people willy-nilly, because if he was using them as bait to try to get Obi-Wan to come out, murdering them is not going to help him because they're dead, and there's no one there for Obi-Wan to come and save. So that I didn't necessarily agree with. I understand the notion of he's kind of crazed right now, and we need to show that to everybody, that this guy is not messing around. He wants to kill people. He doesn't care who gets in his way, that type of thing. But it was one of those, but why is he killing them if his goal is to lure Obi-Wan out?
I took it more as, the numbers will pile up higher, buddy, if you don't do something now,
I'll murder everyone in this village, the women and the children.
See, that's what it should have been. It should have been nothing but children.
Remember how I did this?
Re-traumatize him by, reminding him of his failures. Like, you know what? You couldn't save the younglings, and now you can't save the kids in this one. Mm-hmm. But I agree. It would have been better if it was a little bit more paced out. Just like, you know what? Every 5 minutes you don't show up, I'm going to, stab this one person, so to speak. But,
or if it was like 10 people at once, or spread out, like you're saying, like the choice of showing 2 deaths, just, that was odd, I thought.
But for like the Rogue One, we got to see his killing spree with more of the use of the lightsaber, and here we got to see him more using the Force. But
the Rogue One
I liken this whole
makes
thing
more sense, because he's on a mission. Like, it's right in
Yeah.
front of him. He sees his goal. He knows that's how he has to get to it. And in this moment, I didn't feel the same motivation was there, because my son said the exact same thing. He's like, yeah, but in Rogue One, he kills all those dudes. And well, yeah, but that's because he's trying to get through them to get to one thing. And that's not the case here.
Yeah, I think it's partly because we're dealing with a younger Darth Vader, and
That's
like
fair.
in the
That's a good
comics, like when he's so angry in the comics, he's just like the Hulk at times. He's like,
boy.
I'm not trapped in here with all of you. You are all trapped in here with me. Like, I remember that line where he says that to like 100 stormtroopers and then just murders their shit. And he's just so angry. And I think that's what it is like he also senses Obi-Wan. I think they're sensing each other, and it's making him mad. So he just starts like anybody who is like messing up him trying to find Obi-Wan, he's just like dragging them through the street. He's crushing them. He's like, and it's not even like eloquent. It's just mad. And it's like if the Force was like the Hulk dragging somebody or picking them up and crushing them.
Well, there should have been more of it then. There should have been
buildings. Oh yeah, he should have killed way more people. I agree.
Everywhere.
I agree. He should have killed like lots of people.
Yeah.
I was hoping for more of like a horror, kind of killing spree sort of thing, because they kind of alluded to
Star Wars horror movie.
Well, in the quarry scene when he's running away and hiding, that felt very horror, because it was like Jason or Michael Myers, where no matter how far you run, he's right there behind you.
Right there.
Even though we never hear Darth Vader run, he just like appears behind you, just like Jason or Michael Myers. The
hallucination, right?
The hallucination scene, that was just, that creeped me out. It's like, wait a minute, did they just pull like a horror, like, bit? It's like I
am here for that.
There's got to be a horror Star Wars now, and if Deborah Chow's going to direct it, I would love it. She knows.
It's and to everyone's point, it does kind of devolve into something very, very horrific, particularly for Obi-Wan. There's jump scares and everything too, when he's going through the quarry, and he turns around and then boom, there's a red lightsaber right there, and he has to he's knocked back by it. We see how damaged Obi-Wan is, because he's not even really fighting back. Not only he's so discouraged, he's lost his mojo completely. He's so traumatized by everything that happened on Mustafar that he's not really even doing much other than defending himself and preventing himself from dying. And it's so disheartening to see this. This is Obi-Wan now. He's a shell of who he was, because of everything that happened, and everything that happened is literally staring him in the face, trying to kill him right now, and it's because of that Vader is really just wailing on him. And we get to a point, which is really, you get to this sadistic point in Vader, this sadistic streak, because he blames Obi-Wan about everything that happened to him, where Vader sets combustibles on fire, lifts up Obi-Wan in the air like a freaking puppet and ragdoll, and just drags him through the flaming, combustibles as he's burning up and everything. He's like, now it's your turn to suffer, and I'm not going to kill you. I'm literally just going to make you suffer and everything. That was terrifying for me. What did you guys think?
So, and Alika will probably correct me when I say this. Obi-Wan has two default lightsaber stances that he uses. He didn't go to either of those. And you could see like Darth Vader was just like trying to get a reaction out of him. He was like wanting to make him fight him. Like he wanted his revenge, and he wanted it to be not this depressed man who was willing to die. He wanted to fight Obi-Wan Kenobi. And it felt like he didn't go to either of his two stances. He was just defending. He was just kind of letting it happen. And I think it was because he's depressed and he blames himself. And I think maybe part of him feels like he deserves to die. And if anybody deserves to kill him, it should be Anakin. And I think like somewhere in that is like why he didn't turn on his lightsaber at first. It's why he didn't choose a fighting stance. It's why he basically lets his lightsaber fall when he gets ragdolled. And I think that's part of why Vader didn't really pursue him after that, because he's like, this isn't what I wanted. I wanted revenge, and it's not going to feel like revenge if it's this depressed old man who's trying to let me kill him. That's what I got a lot of that scene. And also Best Boy came back in that scene. He left the house and he was like, all right, the kid and the girl are fine. I'm going to go save Obi-Wan Kenobi because I'm Best Boy. And I thought that was so brilliant that like, he just didn't have any lines. You just knew he was going to go help. That was his thing. He just wants to help.
I agree with that in a lot of ways, but I also think that Obi-Wan is so out of practice that he didn't really know what to do. And yeah, there's an argument against someone who is trained as hard as he has, who knows his body and is a soldier, should be able to react in that moment, no matter how long it's been. But I think that had something to do with it too. But absolutely, he is rattled seeing Vader, knowing it's Anakin. He is rattled at the situation that's unfolding in front of him. He's rattled by all of it. But I really think part of it is also that he was out of practice and he didn't know what to do.
Yeah. And I think his connection to the Force is also wavering.
Which we've seen hints of, that he hadn't been in contact with it for so long that he was having trouble kind of getting back to that point.
Yeah, like when he tries to catch Leia and it's like
it's a struggle.
He's a struggle, and then she just drops down. Like old Obi-Wan would have been like whoop, and then picked her right back up.
But my fan theory is that it's her that saves herself.
Oh,
because we know she can float, right? We know this because of Last Jedi, when the ship gets hit and she gets blown out into space. We know she can float. So what if? I'm just saying.
I like that.
Like that too.
I wish they thought about things as complexly as you did, Matt.
I know they're not. And I know lots of people have problems with that scene. I'm not saying it's a great scene, but it's there. And so I'm using it.
I would have loved that to be true. I don't think people think that like as deeply as
I have seen some people who think that.
No, but I meant at Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone thinks that intently, unfortunately. We hope that's the case. It never usually is.
Oh, I know it's not. I'm just saying, like, that's my personal.
That'd be great. I love that theory, actually. But yeah, Michael, I'm sorry I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No. I was going to say those are all points, and I can't elaborate anymore.
Oh no!
Did we lose Mike?
No. Hello.
No.
Oh, you broke up a little bit.
You froze up a little bit. Yeah, you're good now.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Okay.
All right. But yeah, we missed a little bit of what you were going to say, Mike. Did you want to repeat that?
No, I can't elaborate anymore because you guys said it so wonderfully. I like Matt's point, and yeah. So
cool. All right. So, while Vader's, torturing Obi-Wan, he extinguishes the flames. He wants the stormtroopers to go and get him. But Tala gets there and is able to save the day, shoots out a couple of stormtroopers and gets to him on time, along with Best Boy, as Jeromy refers to him as Ned B. And this is all great, for Obi-Wan. It's less great for Leia because she's completely unattended in the tunnel, and it's partly her own fault. She told Tala, "Go back there, get him out, bring him home, bring him here right now. Make sure that he gets with you." I guess Tala is very easy to give directions to because she just follows whatever people tell her to do, apparently. But that being said, Leia's on her own. She's running through the tunnels, and Reva is not only hot on her trail, but already pretty much aware of the whole path situation. Apparently, I don't know when this was ever established, but she also knows where it leads out to because she somehow beats Leia there. I don't know how, again. I think Reva ends up being the smartest person here because she just knows everything, apparently. She knows Anakin Skywalker is Darth Vader, which makes no sense to me. She knows where the path ends out, which makes no sense to me. But still, for the sake of convenience, she knows. Kills the Ryan Johnson looking fella, and then goes after Leia, and then we cut to black. How do we feel about all of just basically the ending here?
I'm so glad you said it, because like I'm still mad at that tunnel. I was like, the first thing I tweeted after the episode was like, tunnels, how do they work? Because I was like, is this thing magical? Because they didn't pass each other. What's her name? Not Leia, but Reva and they didn't pass each other at all.
No.
So how did that work? And she got there to Obi-Wan so fast without passing by Reva at all. And then so they didn't pass by each other at all. That didn't make sense to me. And then Reva got to the end of the tunnel without passing Leia, which didn't make sense to me. And it didn't make sense to me that this soldier was like, oh, okay, I'm not going to go protect this child. I'm going to go save the legendary general Obi-Wan Kenobi, who's doing a distraction for us. I'm going to go save him and let this child go be on her own. And that was, to me, like so dumb. And part of me was like, I was like, did she use the Force to convince her to do that?
What I was going to say is that maybe this is her, like, getting some of her Force power. You don't know.
That's the only explanation for that I could come up with. But the tunnel itself infuriates me. I'm so mad at that tunnel.
I wanted to ask, because I probably missed it. Did this tunnel like split off to any other?
Never that we see. We don't see until we see Reva come face to face with Leia. We don't see any other like offshoots at all.
Yeah, they lead us to believe it's basically a straight path, and that's all Leia has to do to get there is just follow that straight path there. And I'm like, well, then how did Reva get there? None of it, like magic tunnel, secret magic tunnel, drives me crazy.
It's not so secret. I mean, if Reva seems to know about it, or if it's in the Sith archives, I guess.
And I did like the scene where she finds the Jedi symbol on the wall, and then she gets mad because I have a fan theory about her, and I feel like that's leading into my fan theory.
You think that she's one of the Padawan from the Great Purge scene in the beginning, right?
Well, I think that's pretty obvious for us, but I think also like she doesn't have a characteristic that the other Sith and the other Inquisitors have.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very distinct characteristic that even Anakin got when he turned to the dark side. And I'm talking about them eyes. She doesn't have the Sith eyes. And this is my fan theory. It could be crazy. It could happen. I think the reason she wants Obi-Wan is to get to Anakin, because she doesn't meet Anakin or Darth Vader really in person to where his guard is going to be down. But if she brings him Obi-Wan, she might get a chance to or she gets something to get close to him. She might be able to get revenge for the other Padawans that he slaughtered and she saw. So I think there's something going on with her that's a little bit more than she just wants power. And it could be that, but I definitely think the eye thing is like something that I keep thinking about, because I like every Sith I could think about, even Sidious, even Maul, a lot of them have those like yellow, really disjointed eyes that are Sith eyes, basically. So that's kind of my theory. But I liked her reaction to the symbol, and I feel like that is telling us a little bit more about, like, maybe hinting about how she feels about the Jedi as a whole.
I like that theory, except for the fact that we know that some of the Sith can hide those eyes, such as Palpatine.
True.
And I also do think that there is a distinction between the Inquisitorial staff and Sith Lords like Vader and Sidious. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily call the Inquisitors themselves Sith Lords.
I saw a couple of arguments about that on Twitter in the last 2 days, that technically the Inquisitors are not Sith. Mm-hmm. That sure, they're meddling in the Force and everything, but they're not Sith at all.
Right.
Like, it's a whole different kettle of fish.
The Jedi who turned.
They're former Jedi, right? So yeah.
Some of them, yeah. Like, for example, second sister from the Fallen Order game. Her eyes haven't turned a specific color or anything like that either. So, I'm noticing that some of the Inquisitorial staff do have those different eyes for sure, but then there are others that don't necessarily. So it's
again, that's my crazy fan theory.
I like it.
It's a good
Good theory, actually. I really like, wow.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
What did everyone else think? Did anyone have any thoughts on the tunnel situation?
No, I'm right there with Jeromy about that stupid tunnel.
Yeah.
How does it work? Yeah. How does it work?
So there's an exit sign, and the tunnel leads out right next to
into a Wendy's.
Yeah.
Into a Wendy's. There's a drive-through. Past the drive-through.
That's the drive-through.
It happens to lead right to the quarry where Obi-Wan ran away, and she happened to know where he ran away to.
Yep, right into the slag
because pit. That makes sense on this whole big planet. The tunnel and that. I was so confused. That was the one thing where I was like the gate, and then like there were things where it's just like, why did we do that? Why does this doesn't make sense? And it took me out of the whole experience.
Yeah, there's a lot of finesse that's needed from a production standpoint to sort of help us better suspend our disbelief that I feel like has been missed.
That's what it is. So many of the audiences now are at a more, I hate saying more cerebral level, but it's true, because we're able to have these discussions about these things, saying like, that's not how tunnels work. That's not how space works. That's not how this thing works. It's like, sorry, we have more information at our fingertips. So you kind of have to treat us as a more intelligent audience.
Yeah. And it's also like, I always argue with other people and myself, like Star Wars at its core is for kids. Star Wars, every generation has been for the next generation of children and teenagers. So I tell myself that all the time. Mm-hmm. But when it came to this tunnel, I was like, even as a child, I would have been like, what the fuck? That's not how tunnels work. Like, how did magic tunnel? I even as a kid, I would not have been able to just accept that's how this tunnel works.
Imagine you were in like a McDonald's play space tunnel, and suddenly your parent is at the other end of it as you were walking out, right? Like that's.
It would have made sense to me because she's also at the purple one. I'm in the purple one. Like I don't know, like I'm still mad. I'll die mad at that tunnel.
That's it. There's a slide. There was a slide.
Yeah,
that's it.
Slide right into the quarry's ball pit.
Leva took a slide. Done. Solved it.
Oh, this is fun, guys. I like talking about nitpicks with Star Wars. I know that we're a little over time. So I know that we're probably going to have to wrap up things here today. Obviously I want to thank you all, so much for joining and everything like that. But before we do outros, does anyone have any final thoughts that they want to say about the episode?
Jeromy hit exactly on what I was going to say. What my biggest complaint is that if Darth Vader, Anakin, really wanted to kill Obi-Wan, he had his chance. We've seen that he can throw this guy around like it's no one's business. And he just he takes them off the fire and throws him down on the ground again. And then the fire explodes in front of him and he just lets him go. That to me made no sense at all. You've gone through all this effort, you've toyed with him, you've played with him, and now you're letting him go. Obviously, it wasn't about killing him right then and there.
Yes.
You have another thing that you're trying to get done, and just why?
That was also the gate thing over again for me, because as a director, this is a director nitpick. She chose to pan out, and you could see the width of the fire. Yeah. Those stormtroopers could have just walked around the fire.
Yeah,
and it was like, stop panning out.
What does their armor protect them from? Like, seriously, they couldn't just walk through that and get him. Like, I don't get it.
They also could have just walked around. They were so confused. Like the fire was only so big, and you could see a walking path around the fire. Same as the gate, same as the thing. And I was just like, stop panning out on these things
Like,
that you're trying to
I
make
agree with
impossible
this.
to pass.
Are we saying that Anakin is now also Frankenstein's monster, that he's terrified of fire
He had a bad
because
experience.
he probably could have walked through it in that entire suit he's in? Because I
Yep.
bet you anything, it's flame proof.
Even he could
He's
just
not gonna feel it either because his
Yeah.
legs aren't there.
That's
So
true.
yeah.
He's half mechanical, and he could just use the Force to, like, kind of force field
Put
himself
out the
through it.
fire, or
Yeah.
lift up Obi-Wan and drop him back down into the fire. If
He
that
could
was
have grabbed
anything.
Obi-Wan, Best
But-
Boy, and the girl and
Yeah.
threw them in the fire and been like, all right, barbecue
And-
time.
and
Cool,
let's-
done.
Let's say that his overall goal was not to kill him right then and there, but to make him suffer. But he'd still have to capture him for that.
Yeah.
And you'd still need to get him for that. The fact that Tala, Best Boy, and
That's
Obi-Wan,
his name now.
It's
That's his name.
it's always going to be Best Boy. The fact that they're just able to get away and Vader's just like, we'll get him later. I mean, like, that's kind of lazy writing. Right?
I think he's disappointed because even in the original fight with Darth Vader and Obi-Wan,
Mhm.
he's mad and he was trying to get him
He's trying
to
to
fight him.
Provoke
And then
him.
Obi-Wan
Yeah.
is like, strike me down. And
Yeah.
like he strikes him down and he doesn't feel good about it. Like he's not getting the revenge he wants. And I think that's what that whole scene was like, he's going to let him go. And Darth Vader letting them go makes more sense to me than the stormtroopers being like, we can't get around this fire. we're trained soldiers and we're like, we can't walk up a hill or run around.
Go
Like,
around.
Or shoot the broadside of the
there's a
barn.
really high fire. It's like 5 feet tall. I can't shoot over that. Like, like the Darth Vader
How
thing.
do
I get.
lasers work?
Yeah. How do tunnels work? Like, it was that the Darth Vader thing. I think he lets him go on purpose because he's disappointed and he's not getting what he wanted. Which is like always been like such a motivation for his character. And yeah, he's walked through fire before in the comics. It's brought up, and he's been in explosions in the comics. Like the man doesn't give a fuck.
Yeah.
I think he just lets him go because he's like, that's not
That
the
sucked.
Obi-Wan I wanted.
That's not the fight I want.
But the stormtroopers letting him go did not make sense to me.
No, they're like, hey, boss isn't moving. I'm not doing that.
Oh,
He said
man.
capture him, but
Whatever.
that's a really high fire.
All right, guys. Well, this was a lot of fun, and I want to thank everyone for being here. So just to wrap things up, Mike, Lee, where can they find you?
You can find me on all socials: TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at I am Michael J. Lee, and I write for That's It LA, Nerds Color, We Live Entertainment, and Geeks Too.
Awesome. Jeromy, how about you?
So I am Jeromy TV on all places on the internet, and I just actually put. I forgot to bring this up. We have a raccoon on my Twitch channel, and his name is Obi-Wan. My followers got to name him, and there was a vote, and he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. And I just put the emoji of him in the chat with his lightsaber. So of course I'm on Twitch, Instagram, Twitter. Everything is Jeromy TV, Jeromy with an O. This weekend I will be hosting 4 different panels at Anime Riverside, or hosting 3, and I'm on 1. So I'm doing 2 different voice acting panels for voice acting for video games and an intro to voice acting. And I'm also doing the Jujutsu Kaisen panel. So if you are a fan of anime, please come by. And I'm also going to do unnecessary debates where we're probably going to argue things like Star Wars and nerdy things, because that's basically what it is. It's just an argument show where we argue nerdy things and then they pick a winner. Last time I argued the best date with Henry Cavill because it was like, well, Witcher was a thing. Yeah, I know. The answer to that, and I gave this away on yesterday's
All of
episode.
them. The answer is all of them. Any date with Henry Cavill would be the best one. I mean, come on.
It starts with breakfast in bed, and it ends with breakfast in bed. Yeah.
Yep.
Sounds super.
I mean,
So-
as long as he's like glocking his gun, his guns.
Oh, his arm guns.
He
His
can
arm
build a
guns.
PC
Yeah,
in
I'm
front of
happy
me. I don't
with
care.
that.
But yeah, that's where you can find me.
And Mab, how about yourself?
You can primarily find me at nerdbot.com. Look up my name anywhere else, Mary Ann Butler. Find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, but mostly Nerdbot.
And I'm Mike Manalo, at TidyBullBoy182 on Twitter and Instagram, but mostly on the nerdsofcolor.org, whattowatch.com, and that's at LA. With that said, thank you all for joining us, and may the force be with you all.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thank you.
Maybe the force be with you always.
My battery is dead.